Welcome to Coffee with the Flat Earther. There's a lot of animosity between ballers and flat earthers. I hope to reduce this by having some friendly conversations. I hope we can find our common ground while we all look for truth. Today, I'm talking with the mind of God.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, why you chose your name, family, friends, hobbies, education, things like that?
Okay, so I guess I'll start with just my sort of ethnic background. So I was born in India, but moved to Canada when I was 2 years old and grew up in Canada in a small town called North Bay, Ontario. You know, it's honestly in the middle of nowhere. It's like 4 hours north of Toronto. So, you know, hockey is like a major thing for people in North Bay. So I did undergrad in London, Ontario, and then moved to Houston in 2004 for grad school. And I was pursuing, I did an undergrad in electrical engineering, and I have a master's in electrical engineering from Rice. And then I actually started getting interested in like the business world, and I did a project for my first company at Schlumberger in accounting and finance, and I started sort of getting interested in just becoming like a controller and then working my way up into like a VP finance type role. So I actually pursued a second master's in accounting and then also did my CPA. So currently I work in the field of accounting for a directional drilling company in Houston. And so the journey of Flat Earth is kind of like a meandering one for me. So I like in my undergrad, I got involved in like campus ministry, Campus Crusade for Christ. And so I underwent what most people would consider as kind of like a conversion or like quote unquote accepting, you know, Christ in my life. And then I continued that journey at Rice, part of the Rice Graduate Christian Fellowship. And so I've been involved in like evangelical Christianity for quite a number of years. And I took a leadership role there as well in the graduate fellowship. But then I would say there was many years that I kind of sloughed off from religion, you know, completely. And then around 2014, 15, I started getting into through Russian Bids' channel and a few others into the conspiracies and all the kind of numerology and the coordination of the evil worldwide. And so that kind of led me down this trail of even just having the thought like the earth might be not a ball in my mind. And to be honest, even before then, I can't even think of very many times that I questioned the shape of the earth in my life until that moment. So that really was kind of the starting point, you know, of this journey. And then in the last year or so, maybe just through my own conviction, I've been a little bit more bold on YouTube with videos and debates and dialogues like this one. So I appreciate you making time to talk.
Yeah, I'm glad you can talk with me too. So what would you say is the thing that pushed you over the edge, that convinced you more than anything else that the earth was flat?
So at the beginning, it was more just kind of testing the idea with people around me. So I did not feel as certain as I do now, certainly. But I would say a lot of it for me is actually not the technical piece. It's more of actually the qualitative stuff that for me gives me greater comfort that I'm onto something. And so, which I think, you know, these kind of discussions that you're planning on hosting, I think will help facilitate a more meaningful interaction. But whenever I sort of bring up things to people and even like people close to me and they get uncomfortable and I can just kind of in my using my gut, my senses, I can tell that I might be onto something, whether it be flat earth or something else. That sort of actually gives me quite a bit of confidence that I might be onto something. But I think the initial arguments of like, you know, just water can't bend and all that kind of stuff was compelling for sure. But I do find this whole thing kind of interesting. And again, I'm not trying to label you this way, but I find like people on the baller side have a aversion towards talking about other things in the world that I know are evil. And so I think this is where for me, it's almost like I'm forced to take one side anyway, even if I didn't have the sort of quantitative reasons for being a flat earther. Even just qualitatively, it feels like people are being divided on the conspiracy theory side. And I know a lot of things are not conspiracy theories anymore, from just purely like our financial system is not a conspiracy, that it's completely evil. So it's hard to really actually pinpoint it, but just over the last few years, those have just been amplifying and growing.
Okay. So you kind of went over when this was. It's been the last 2 years, maybe. So you said that the qualitative stuff rather than the quantitative stuff. So as an engineer, that's not. I'm an engineer too. I studied electrical engineering.
Oh, nice.
So I gravitate towards the technical things more easily. It's sometimes hard for me to do the things that are not technical. What is it that you mean when you say that the qualitative?
I think it's just I don't know if you've seen some of the recent hangouts too with Russian bids. Like for me, the stuff that he brings out, for I suspect not just me, it's not a conspiracy to us anymore. It's like obvious. Like it's not even a debate, the stuff that he's bringing out. I don't go to necessarily the extent that he does about, transsexuals and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't, that's just his own view, but really kind of everything up to that, with the coordination of the evil and the numerology and the encoding. And I think for me, actually, the most powerful form of evidence is that, to me, it's very obvious, being a CPA and accountant, that the financial markets are completely rigged, and like, I was just watching like news clippings earlier, like people are like sitting around MSNBC, Bloomberg, talking about the stock market like it's some like person, like it actually has a personality, when we all know now it's rigged. Like, so the barrier that most people have to jump over of like, oh, how could the coordination be so huge and for this many years and all that, I have no issues with that, because I just have to turn on any financial news and I mean, it's like comedy for me now. Like, I know there's no one can ever convince me and a lot of other people now that there's absolutely coordinated deception in the financial world. So for me, like, to pull off something like this, and then the religious aspect of it, where I feel God is doing this, it's very trivial for me to be a flat earther from the qualitative side. And then the quantitative side is largely my qualms with gravity, which you've seen probably in one of my videos. So those two combined are more than enough for me to feel very comfortable where I am.
All right. We'll shift gears here a little bit. I'm going to ask you about some different conspiracy theories, and just give me a yes, no, or maybe on what you think about it. Just kind of quick, not you don't have to explain everything or qualify anything, So, all right. Big Pharma is in cahoots with the FDA.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fluoride is put in water to make people dumb.
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't word it that way.
Okay. People have figured out free energy, but are keeping it a secret.
No, I don't know anything about that.
Okay. 9/11 was an inside job.
9/11 was done by God.
Okay.
Yeah.
The moon landings were faked.
Absolutely.
Chemtrails are real and used for energy or to harm people.
Actually, sorry, to go back on the moon landing, they could be real, but I obviously don't believe that. But they're making it seem like it's fake. Everything we've been presented appears fake. So, but
okay.
I also obviously technically believe that they couldn't do that at that time. So,
all right, chemtrails are real and used for energy or to harm people.
No, I don't. I could go either way with that. I haven't looked into it, or I have no means of verifying that.
Okay. Some people are paid by shady organizations to support the round earth.
I would say that's a majority of the world. Yeah, absolutely. They don't know that they're forced to believe that and push that. But yeah, that's happening.
Okay. Queen Elizabeth is a shape-shifting lizard person.
No comment. I have no idea. That sounds David Icke-ish.
It sounds what?
I don't know if David Icke is into that kind of stuff, but it sounds maybe something that he would be supporting. But no, I have no idea. And
okay,
yeah,
I've seen it on some. I did a video on Flat Earth Paradise, and he makes that claim.
Wow.
He's in the deep end of the crazy pool. They think there's a magic portal at the North Pole.
Yeah. Anytime I hear shape shifting, I mean, yeah. That's not for me.
Did I miss any?
Flat Earth is the biggest one. Ultimately it's the biggest one, and then the next one that I think is coming soon and the last one is the Mark of the Beast. But yeah, the major ones are decentralizing the banking system. To me, the coordination worldwide has the biggest impact day to day.
All right.
That's not a conspiracy for me anymore. It's impossible for someone to convince me that that's not the case, because
the
entire world is enslaved through the central banking system.
All right. So, other than we can see too far, what's your best observation for flat Earth, in support of a flat Earth?
Just that I know the sun is not 93 million miles away. Just by my own depth perception, I'm comfortable with that. I mean, verifying it would be cool for sure. And I was actually trying to think of some ways to do that, but that alone is good for me personally.
So how would you measure that if you were to?
Yeah, I was trying to think of how to do that without any like sophisticated tools.
Well, what if you had a budget and tools?
Yeah, I'd have to man, I've never done something like that, but and I'm honestly not sure how to do that. That will remove the nonlinearities, make it like rigorous, like not based on things that are changing in the atmosphere and stuff like that. I'm not sure how to do that, but I'll think about it, and I actually have a live stream every weekend that I want to start turning into a brainstorming thing like that. But I honestly did spend a little bit of time thinking about that, because I was looking at the link that you sent me. But if I come up with something, I'll obviously let you know or post it. But I don't think it's that easy, honestly, or at least it's not a problem that I've solved, because it's obviously multivariable, because it's like size of the sun and distance. And it's moving too. So, or we think it's moving, or we're moving, however you think of it. So it's not just a one variable kind of thing. So it's.
What about triangulation?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I'm going to challenge anybody who sends me anything like that is I'm going to ask for support for all the distances on that triangle. That's totally fine. But, just that in and of itself is difficult, because one of the base of the triangle is going to be on the Earth. So it's like, if we're debating the shape of it, that's difficult. So that's the issue of this being a multivariable problem. It's like, if you're trying to assess the distance to the sun, but then you're also debating the curvature of the Earth, then it's like, it's a multivariable problem. Like, you can't solve two things with a triangle kind of thing, like in that way.
Yeah, you'd need multiple triangles at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd have to do multiple observations, and again, I think just then to me it's kind of pointless to even look at the distance to the sun if you are. Well, I guess no. Actually, in that case, I guess you'd be using certain characteristics of the sun to pin down what the shape of the Earth would have to be. But again, me personally, I haven't thought of a rigorous experiment on how to do that yet. But I'd be open to hearing, if you have thoughts on that or.
Okay. What is the worst flat Earth claim you've heard? Something that's, not true.
Yeah, I think anything that has the word infinity in it, whether it's infinite plane or infinite, what else do people say? Like if the Earth is moving, you know, I think the Flat Earth Society or whatever claims that the Earth is actually moving.
Accelerating up.
Yeah, accelerating or something. Like that to me kind of implies, you know, unrestricted space, you know, and all that. That doesn't sit well with me. Anytime the word infinity is brought up from a mathematical perspective, it's a construct to me, and it invokes things of God, like spirituality, like, and all that. So anybody talking about like we're on an infinite plane and all that kind of stuff, I mean, they might be trying to say something else, but that already kind of puts you in the non-physical category kind of thing. Like everything about what we're now, a lot of us are awakening to is that our surroundings are finite, you know, and all that kind of stuff, like our surroundings, our border or whatever. So I don't like when I hear stuff like that, especially if it's by somebody who doesn't know what infinity means, because there's different definitions of infinity too. You know, there's not just one brand of infinity in mathematics. And so I'm not sure people even know what they're saying. So
yeah, I think most people don't know that.
Yeah. There's like countably infinite, like uncountably infinite. And so I don't know if these people are what they're talking about, you know, when they say that word. They might just mean it's really, really big, which is fine. They should just say that instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been active on the tfes.org forums for about a year.
Okay.
And there isn't one thing that they at the Flat Earth Society back. It's just a few guys is all it is. And they just post on the forums, and they don't agree with each other. The ones that are the flat earthers on there, there's as many flat earthers on there as ballers on that forum. And so I always find it funny when somebody says that it's controlled opposition, because it's just a bunch of guys, and they don't agree with each other either. They don't bicker, but they don't. Some say infinitely accelerating upwards. Some say infinite plane. Some say electrostatic stuff. But yeah, I think for the most part, none of them on that forum, none of the flat earthers there are buoyancy and density guys. So
Interesting.
All right. So what is the worst spherical Earth claim? Something that's, you know, not correct.
I mean, me personally, it's hard to almost pick now, because the 93 million to me is preposterous. But I would say for me personally, gravity, I know just it's not real. So I would just say just gravity. The existence of gravity is the worst claim.
Okay. And what is then the most convincing spherical Earth observation or evidence you've seen?
I would say the thing that we, from an apologetics point of view, the flat earthers maybe, and again, this is just my very limited view and scope into it, is explaining the phases of the moon is probably the most challenging thing for us, because again, there is a lot to be discovered, you know, if the flat earth is true, and then we have to explain all that, but it would be just God doing it. You know, if it's an independent light and it does the things that we observe that it does, even just recently with the eclipses and stuff, like, I mean, that's a difficult pill to swallow for really anybody. But probably if there is a rigorous and predictive way that the heliocentric model can predict what the moon is doing and illuminating and not illuminating, that might be the part that I'm the least capable of defending myself with.
Mm-hmm. Like you mean like predicting where the eclipse will pass on the Earth?
Yep.
Like the solar eclipse, not the lunar eclipse everybody saw just the other night. You know, it didn't matter where you were, but when
or even just when
I know a lot of flat earthers went to like Kansas, where the eclipse was, and I find that a little funny because the predictions about where it was going to happen is at least claimed to be based on, you know, orbital mechanics and not, you know, who knows what it would have to be if the Earth were flat and
Right.
somebody actually understood it well enough.
Yeah, I need to look into that more and see if it's just based on history, like people are just, you know, have logged it and then they're referencing a historical account or
Well, there certainly is. They call them sorrow cycles,
okay.
and that's very accurate at predicting when, you know, within 1 or 2 days. But
Okay.
it doesn't do anything for the location.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
the location is far as I know, for flat Earth, there's no answer that I've seen.
Yeah, I could just from my again, just strictly from like a defending my stance point of view, that's just something again I need to like look into more. But
okay. So I sent you an article I wrote. It's actually the prep I'm doing for a video on the angular elevation of sunsets.
okay.
And the link will be in the description. And it's also on my website at mctoon.net. So for anybody following along at home, what did you think about that?
I think this oh man, this I mean, can you maybe just tell me the high level, like what
Sure.
you're trying to do? Yeah.
So a lot of the time, like I've seen P Brain and Rob Skiba and, you know, lots of, and Puckett Word, and they all say that the sun sets due to perspective, right? So, you know, when you're standing in a tunnel or you see phone poles, they all, as they go farther away, they go, you know, down, right? And they get close to the ground, and then they eventually disappear into you know, the vanishing point. You can't differentiate between the pole and the ground. They're too far away, too small. And so then the explanation is, well, that's the sun. The sun just does that because everything goes down. But we can calculate, given the height and the distance it is from on the ground from us, we can use a right triangle, and we can do side angle side to solve the right triangle, and we can find out the angle of the elevation above the horizon that it will be. And this is accurate, and we know it. It's a well-explored thing. And it uses 8th grade math, right? Side angle side. So when you take a sun that's 3,000 miles high, or 5,000 or 1,000, doesn't matter much, and then you take the position of where any viewer could be on the Earth and how far away the sun could possibly be at the farthest. So I take the southern tip of South America on the day of the southern solstice. So it's the closest, if on the flat Earth, right? It's circling around. It's the closest at local solar noon, and at local solar midnight, it's over the western coast of Australia, over 17,000 miles away. That's the farthest the sun could ever be, according to the Gleason's map, from an observer that's not in Antarctica. And so then we take the elevation of 3,000 miles, right? And then we can take this angle here to the horizon and to the sun, and we can calculate what that is. The smallest the smallest angle possible is 9.5 degrees. This is the most extreme. In Minneapolis, where I live, on the northern solstice, the lowest it could be on that day in the middle of the night is 25 degrees elevation. So how does the sun set?
I guess that I'm not a big fan of that method, you know, just because, I mean, the horizon, we're talking about a size of the sun we don't know, and the distance that we're contesting. I mean, there's just too many things that we don't agree on, you know, and I think that if anywhere in here you're making an assumption about any of those things, I think that's problematic. And I think the issue too is, well, no, sorry, I'll let you say something before I go.
We can look at the sun when you're on the Tropic of Capricorn in South America, and you can see it straight up. It's 90 degrees up on the day of the southern solstice, right? And so we can measure where it is as it's directly above, and then it's going to go away, and you can measure the angle that it's at, and based on it's small and local. Based on that assumption, if it's small and local, then if it's an object instead of just a who knows what, then there's a place that it exists in three-dimensional space, and we can calculate where it is, and we can calculate the angle where it is. And certainly there's things like refraction and other things that might change it a bit, but
yeah, there's so many.
9.5 degrees is a far stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a good observation, like a feather in your hat, but to me, I would not go down this road to prove the shape of the Earth. There's way too many non-linearities. Like, it's not even the thing that I mentioned in my video about gravity. I'd be comfortable with that. Like, that's non-linear, repeatable, and rigorous. It leads to an exclusive solution. It doesn't tell you the dimensions of the curved Earth, but it will tell you it is curved. And so that's good enough for me. I would just take the word of the ball Earth community. And at that point, I would have absolutely no reason to argue with anything. So again, I'm not trying to say that this is not useful, but for me personally, to have an experiment that I would literally like rest my life on, because like I've said in other videos, it's not just a shape now, it's the Bible for me as well. As the credibility of the Bible is along for the ride now. So what you said, I wouldn't take that as rigorous, like for me personally.
Okay.
I would need something linear.
I think that's linear. It's just triangles, but that's fine. We'll move on. So I asked you for something for me to look at. You just said gravity, something doing with gravity. So I found one of your videos called The Rigorous Test / Challenge for Ball Earthers to Show Us Gravity is Indeed Real.
If someone shows me that, I'm more than happy.
Yeah. Do you want to explain that briefly? Yeah.
So the idea is that basically a level cannot stay level over two surfaces. I've had to kind of split hairs with some ballers who've been patient with me and me with them, but just logically we know that a level cannot stay level traversing two surfaces. And so the baller theory would say that if a level, again, we know the Earth is massive and we can't necessarily do this experiment, but over the entire Earth, but the theory is that a level will stay level no matter what size the level is or whatever. If it is the tangent to a point on the oblate Earth, it's going to stay level because of gravity. And it's only because of gravity. That's the most important thing. It's not any other factor but gravity, being in a gravitational field with the directions going towards the center of the Earth. That's the only thing that is allowing this phenomenon to occur. And then so if I create, a surface that contrasts that, like a flat one, then, if a level to be, just in a theoretical sense, at least for now, if a level were to go across a flat surface for a long enough time and it's in this gravitational field, it would not stay level at some point. And we would need to observe some, in my opinion, bizarre characteristics if it's gone far enough. And so that's one issue, just even rubbing it along a flat surface far enough. But even what it reads at the starting point is also a bit of kind of an issue too. But let's just say that at the starting point, the level reads level simply because, gravity is doing what it's supposed to do. So I'll kind of concede that. But now when this thing slides across a flat surface, it would have to exhibit a different output than if it was going across Earth curve, and so I'm basically forcing flat in the gravitational field.
So you're forcing that if it's sitting on the Earth, that you're extending a straight surface tangent long enough so that eventually the level that you're measuring is far enough that the
vector hitting it would be
the vector will be angled differently.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be necessarily like in one direction. It just has to be away in three-dimensional space from the starting point. You know, it's like if there were obstructions, that's why I think the drones would be better, and over water would be even better. And on a non-windy day, it would be possible to do something like this.
Yeah. So I saw a few problems with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting thought experiment, but in reality, I don't think it's possible. The claim is that it takes 69 miles to be 1 degree. Right now, a sensitive enough level could measure less than 1 degree accurately, but but the problems are bigger than that. So let's just multiply it out. If you did go 1 degree worth, so 69 miles, that's 364,000 feet. And if you had a 10-foot boards and you just lined them up like in your experiment, board after board, and you just keep moving them past each other, keeping the intersection between the boards perfectly flat so that you can keep that top of that surface perfectly flat and tangent to the original position. So I did the math. If it's 1/1000th of a degree accuracy, as if that's your margin of error on meeting those boards together, over the course of 69 miles, your final margin of error is plus or minus 18 degrees. And you're expecting to measure 1 degree. So your margin of error is way outside what you could measure. So whether you do it for just a tenth of a degree worth of distance or 1,000th of a degree worth of distance, it doesn't matter. Your margin of error is always going to be larger than your ability to measure the actual angle of the curve. And so if you have people holding it or even drones holding it, that 1/1000th of a degree is way too precise. So I did the math though to say, well, what would be the required precision of meeting those boards together in order to get less than 1 degree of margin of error, and it is 1/10,000,000th of a degree is how perfect those angles have to be when you're matching them together. So a drone couldn't do it. I don't know if we have the technology to do that kind of stuff yet. Plus, on top of that, the rigidity of whatever it is that you're putting in there is going to be an issue as well, because even solid steel or concrete is going to flex a little bit if you stand on a concrete bridge. When a car goes over, you can feel it flexing underneath you. So that small amount of flex multiplied by 70 miles, because your first time that you have that error, it skews the rest of it and multiplies it out.
Yeah,
so it's a great thought experiment. I really liked it, but in reality, it's not possible.
It was more for me, at least, to put out there. I agree, it had a lot of even if, let's say, those tolerances could be like overcome, there's just the practical thing. If you have a windy day and you have little drones, like that alone would be like, and you don't even need wind, you just need like a mild breeze. But that was more just to put something out there to explain what is the foundation of my belief that I absolutely do not believe a level will change. You can go 5,000 miles, it doesn't make a difference. And I agree that there are implementation challenges for that, but that is linear, repeatable, and you can see it.
I'd say if we could get a surface that was rigid enough and stretched far enough, maybe 7 miles, so that you could measure 1/10 of a degree, great. But a 7-mile long rigid structure that doesn't flex more than 1/100th of a degree, because you'd need at least an order of magnitude better, is a far cry from what our material science can do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but it's a pretty cool fun.
That to me just again emphasizes the difference. That is something that will isolate gravity. There's no other phenomena that if that level were to start changing and it's resting on a flat surface, that there's nothing else but gravity doing that. So then there's no other. If for me personally, just being an engineer and wanting to see it isolated, that would do it for me. Something like that would do it for me.
Yeah, and more than that, if you could have a perfectly rigid 3-mile thing, well, you'd see it right away, because the curve would drop underneath it. You wouldn't even need to go to gravity. You'd see a curve. But
yeah, I think there's another. That's true, actually. That if an experiment like that with let's say the precision is there, that it could be done. You could kind of piggyback the experiment and also see the divergence of the surface beneath it as well. Possibly, you could be validating gravity and then also checking the distance between the board and whatever whether you're over water or whatever. You could, if there was a way to measure that increase, that would also it would be a doubly good experiment.
Yeah, I saw somebody, I forget who, was trying to do some sort of a strong fiber or rope or something, and was going to pull them over water as tight as possible to reduce the sag between them. But I
heard about that.
It's gonna sag. You're not going to get it to pull strong enough to not sag, and so it would falsely verify a curve, and I wouldn't want that. And same, if you tried to build some sort of a rigid structure, it doesn't matter. If you go far enough to get that curve, it's going to be sagging. So
I think if the drones can be programmed to be in a reliable place in 3-dimensional space, this will be, whenever that happens, a very easy thing to solve, because you could either have something dangling from it that's rigid and have it, program and move an appropriate distance across, like, a level, fixing, the axes. But I don't know if that's possible. Like, I don't own a drone, and I don't know if that's, I've seen people obviously like maneuver, but I don't know if it can be programmed with like a computer.
Drones use GPS coordinates, which is 3-dimensional and based on the WGS84. So you could, being an engineer, and you probably took some software classes, could program it to say, well, I know that the curve, if you keep a constant elevation, you're going to follow a curve, but don't do that. Assume the curve, and
exactly.
Now I want you to go level and program it to do that.
Man, that would be a good experiment, because like with like range finding or like just laser and all that kind of stuff, if we can get that thing to like just shoot down and record the first thing that it's hitting, that would be rigorous for me, something like that.
Yeah. All right. Who is your favorite flat earther?
It's harder to decide now, because it looks like a lot of strife, in the community. But I would say the most influential for me has definitely been Russian Vid. So shout out to him.
Yeah, I saw you were on there on Non Sequitur with him on Saturday.
Yeah, I feel like he's we don't see eye to eye on everything, but I mentioned to them at the first time that I was debating that he was kind of one of the reasons I got into it, and then I think just by courtesy he joined. But I think they like to kind of go down more of the conspiracy side, and I'm more of the end times person. And I think Russian Vids probably has an opinion on the end times, but that's sort of my angle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who's your favorite baller?
Oh man, I would say the one who has been the most kind of diplomatic with me, and I think he's good at defending the ball earth, is probably Red's Rhetoric. He has an answer for everything basically, and quick. And so I give him credit for that. And
he is fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't. Yeah. When he's on non sequitur, when he's like, oh, well, conveniently I did this, and Steve will be pulling this up right now. Like, oh, he has everything indexed for him already.
Even the tilty buildings thing, I kind of, shot from the hip with him on that too. I'm like, well, just show me a tilty building over Pontchartrain. And he's like, oh, the tolerance is this, and he already had the number kind of like ready. And I didn't mention that I was going to bring it up. So I didn't do it at
that's
time.
a common one though. He's had to have heard that. I've heard that a bunch.
That's also, these are all the linear things that I'm waiting for. I'm not going, I'll listen to people's opinion and calculations, but for anybody to, again, with all the things that I've laid on the line that this means for me personally, I will only accept those kind of things, obvious curve and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he's cool. At least he's been nice to me, at least. So
he can get mean sometimes, I think, but it's always entertaining at least. So what would you like to say? This is your chance. What would you like to say to the baller crowd?
I would say if the conversations are more analytical, it would be just more compelling. It's just honestly when it gets like that and you're on the side that I'm on, and then with all the layers that I've added onto that, the conspiracies and then the religious component and all that, I mean, my feet are in like deep, deep, deep sand, and like, I'm not saying that I know everything, but to get me out of that, it takes a lot, and there's people I'm sure who are in even deeper sand than I am. And so strictly just, you're dumb, you need to take 8th grade science and stuff, actually reaffirms that I'm in the right place. Cause like, I don't want to be, just from a practical perspective, I don't want to be around people like that. And so we obviously can do that ourselves and stuff. So, but I'm just speaking from like getting stuff from the other side. And I'm sure that probably the way that flat earthers treat ball earthers sometimes, like they're like more reaffirmed that they're doing the right thing too. Cause they're like, dude, I don't want to hang around those people either. So, but from my perspective, my vantage point, stuff like that, especially with someone who's like at least above average educated, like saying that is like, it's like, it just doesn't make sense, and then it's like literally like a child lecturing an adult in like, mathematics or something. I'm like, well, that's a waste, like I'm not even going to take you seriously, even if you potentially have something intelligent to say. So.
Yeah, I see a lot of comments on both sides that are just one sentence,
Yeah, they're not rigorous. I think that's where we need more people. And I'm not saying the people who are in it already are not, but just the rigor and the accountability for both sides. And I think Nathan Oakley is good at reminding people that their stuff is evidence, potential evidence, even sometimes not proof. We haven't gotten to like a proof where it's like,
oh yeah, science is an accumulation of evidence. You don't get to a proof. You just eventually have enough, a pile of evidence on one side that you say, yeah, that looks like it's the way to go. So yeah, when I see a video or see somebody claim absolute evidence that the earth is flat, I'm like, that's at best, if it's done right and it's rigorous and it's accurate and you understand what's going on, at best it's one piece.
Right.
You have to compare that then to both sides.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a multivariable thing because then you still have the burden to explain all the other phenomena that are going on whatever surface it is. And so until a person does that, both sides, and I think obviously the ball earth community has a lot of answers for all the phenomena and stuff. But yeah, even just once, if it's rigorously shown that the earth is flat, then we still have a lot of work to do potentially beyond that, but to me, the spiritual implications are immediate and all that. That's kind of the only reason I'm in it. I wouldn't care after that much, unless like there's something I could genuinely help, but that's not anything that like interests me personally. But Yeah, evidence and proof are two very, very different things, and not just proof, but an exclusive solution is not something that I've seen from either side. So
Yeah.
what I propose for me is enough. That would be, if someone showed me that, that is gravity isolated, doing what it's supposed to do. And yeah, it's a curve.
Yeah, I like that. I wonder if we could find something else that would be more possible to test. As you know, I don't think that one is a possibility, but maybe something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was coffee with the Flat Earther. I didn't see you have any coffee. I've got mine right here.
You drink this late?
You know, I made some really. It's
Diluted?
9:30 at night. Yeah, I did not make very strong coffee,
That's
but
cool.
I did have to pick up my son at the airport at 4:30 this morning, so I'm pretty tired anyway.
Okay.
But do you have any coffee?
I do start out the day with iced coffee though. Like if we have another discussion like this, we'll just schedule it in the AM maybe, and then I'll have my iced coffee. So it's not that cold in Houston, so we can still drink that even this time of year.
Yeah.
So.
It is cold in Minneapolis here, so
I bet.
All right. Well, thank you, Man of God, for agreeing to be on this first episode of Coffee with a Flat Earther.
Thanks for having me.
If anyone found what Man of God had to say interesting, head over to his channel and have a look. I've got the link in the description.
Thank you.
And it's on my website at mctoon.net. If you're a Flat Earther and would like to join me, send me an email, mctoon@mctoon.net. Next week, I'll be talking with Flat Earth Perth. Thank you for joining us.